On episode 10 of Chit Chat, we ask how important is theme in board games and share some of our favorites. We take a shot at re-theming some modern-day classics, and of course, what discussion of themes would be complete without zombies? Welcome back to another episode of Chit Chat. This is episode 10, if you can believe it. Yes.
10. Yeah.
We are going to talk about mostly board games, not as much about movies and things like that, but we're going to be talking about themes tonight. And we're going to be all over the place. We're going to talk about themes you like, re-theming, you know, some games that you play and you think could use a new theme. Basically, all things themes. And as always, we've got Ryan down here, we've got Gary over here, myself, and Jeremy. Who wants to start and talk about themes, kick things off?
I'll start, because I want to point out something which is, to me, the benchmark of theme. And I talked about this when we did our IP episode, and that's Star Wars Rebellion, which, even if you take the Star Wars out of the equation and just set it up as this galactic struggle, the theme in that game is so on point with the mechanics. Everything you're doing in that game is feeding into the theme. You know, when you're the rebels, you're moving around in secret, you're trying to build up a scrappy underdog force to take on the big empire. I mean, it just feels like you're in Star Wars. It feels like you're in that theme. And I think for me, that's when a game really shines, is when I can't imagine
is when you can connect the
it.
mechanics to, oh, that's clever because that mechanic feels like this.
Right.
But the truth in that is that Star Wars already has a very iconic theme to it. Like when you play Rebellion and you're familiar with the movie, you already know what the game should feel like, or what in your mind you'd want it to be. Same thing with like War of the Ring. Like when you play that game, it is a perfect marriage between the IP and the actual game itself. The trick is trying to pull like a space theme or a game around agriculture and then putting that into like a worker placement game or an area control game and trying to get those to marry up, because that's when you may play a game that you really like Heaven and Ale, which has really good gameplay, but the theme could really be anything.
Right.
That when you play that game, if you played it in an abstract form, you wouldn't go, I know what this feels like.
Exactly. Yeah.
And there are a lot of games like that. We've talked a lot about Pulsar, but in reality, Pulsar, you could be just driving around the United
Pulsar
States,
could be a lot of things.
You know, building buildings and cities. Like, it doesn't have to be space, but I like the theme there.
Yeah, I have to say, interestingly enough, even though that could be a lot of different things, I just played that last night, and I felt afterwards, I really liked the space theme in that game and recognized that at least I don't play a lot of space-themed games, and it was refreshing to have something on the table that was, even though it doesn't scream it, like you said, it doesn't really connect. It could be anything.
I'm the opposite. I've been playing too many space games lately.
Really?
It's starting to feel a little tired for me. When we just played, not to spoil a later reveal, but we played ReWorld the other day, which is a space game. Masters of Orion played recently, which is a space game. Gaia Project, space game. I mean, there's all these space games.
Just looking at our back wall here, I mean, we randomly put these out. We have Planet Defenders, Pulsar, Alien Artifacts, ReWorld. They're all space-themed games. And realistically speaking, looking at all these, they could basically be anything. I mean, all those games don't marriage the gameplay perfectly with the actual theme itself. I'd be interested to hear your take, too. You've just recently replayed Grim Forest, which has a very heavy theme with fables.
Right.
Oh.
How does that work with like the gameplay with the theme now?
So, it's just like it did before, but I got to tell you, the components, when you see all the artwork and all of the pieces that so well represent that world, it really, really sings. Like, I played that over the holidays with my family, and I texted James at Druid City Games and just said, dude, phenomenal experience playing this game in its finished form. And everyone, you know, you're building houses. You're the three little pigs. There's that. Then you've got these fable cards that are basically, you know, the game-breaking sort of things, but they tie into the stories like the Big Bad Wolf and things like that you're putting out and messing with people. And then the friend cards, which are all very thematic. Like, for instance, there's one that's Pinocchio. It's a friend card. And when you have Pinocchio in front of you, you can declare at the beginning of your turn, I'm going to the wheat field. And if you're telling the truth in the end, you get extra wheat. But if you lie, you don't. But there's a little, you know, so it really...
But you might get a benefit from that.
But it's a cool mechanic that ties into the Pinocchio, you know, legend and story.
Well, everybody is familiar with fables and fairy tales. And that's really I don't know of another game that's just really taken all of those, thrown into an easy game system, mechanics that everybody can enjoy. But just like Star Wars Rebellion, not everybody can get into that unless you're like, really into Star Wars.
Unless you know Star Wars.
Unless you know Star Wars. But everybody knows they can really get into like, oh, this feels like
that's the brilliance
Pinocchio
of that
or
theme,
Red Riding Hood.
is that it's so accessible.
Right.
Thematically.
And I don't want to derail the conversation, but it doesn't hurt that the artwork is so well done that it pulls you into that theme as well.
Yep.
If the whole package is there, you're automatically going to gravitate towards whatever it's trying to.
Well, no, that's a great point. Even the pieces and parts, the components in that, when you build those houses, they really look, they're not abstracted.
Yeah.
It's not like a little red house looks just like a little yellow house. It looks like a straw house. It looks like a storybook brick house. It's really cool.
Well, I mean, that's, and not just Grim Forest. I think that's a general concept that we see coming, is that artwork will sell the theme every time. I mean, the better your artwork is, the more in tune with the theme the artwork is. Like Blood Rage, for example, everything in Blood Rage, all of the artwork is very Norse. Even down to the graphic design, even down to the borders on the cards. I mean, it all sells that theme. And so when you're playing it, you actually really feel immersed in that.
It's also consistent. A lot of these games that you play, if you have artwork being contributed from several different sources and you have a graphic designer who doesn't quite match with the artwork, it pulls you out as well. That, even, Grim Forest, it was one artist that did the graphic design and the art for all of that. So it's consistent.
Yeah.
And again, it pulls you in. If there is a disparity between those two, it's automatically, despite what the theme is, and if you might like the theme or the gameplay, it's going to pull you out a little bit.
Yeah, anything, I mean, this goes hand in hand with talking about theme, but anything that makes any experience, gaming or whatever, more immersive is going to heighten the experience from a thematic standpoint. And like what you were saying too, not only the art and the components, but when you combine that with mechanics that also keep you immersed. One example, I'll start with one of mine too, Lisboa. When we played Lisboa, or when we tried to play Lisboa the first time, I was drowning in the rule book and trying to figure it out. This was before it came out. And we actually were fortunate enough to have Vital Skype with us.
Right.
And most of his explanation was a very storytelling explanation of the game and how it tied to the period and what the things that were happening.
The flooding and the fire.
The flooding and the fire and how you're rebuilding. And oh my God, I was so immersed in his storytelling that it made the rules totally click with me. And it made the whole gameplay experience, for me anyway, much
easier to digest.
It was easier to digest for a slightly heavier game for my game tastes. It was way easier to digest because you could see, oh, that's right, I'm taking these and putting them over here because they represent the rubble that I'm removing from the city and things like that.
Yeah.
And even the board that you put the rubble on looked like this wall that they built back then out of the rubble. It was really cool, and that's the example I wanted to give of where I think theme really completely changed my outlook on the game, because I was kind of really confused by it, and then it just clicked.
We're also seeing a pretty big change in the industry as far as like Euros. In the past, or over the past 10 years, Euros have typically been agricultural based, city based, in someplace in weird place, Europe or whatnot. And now we're starting to see it sort of convert over to American themes, right? I'm looking at over on our shelf at Ex Libris, which is a worker placement Euro game, but it uses a very fantasy based, right? And when they're starting to do this, I think it catches on to more people like us. I mean, I love Euros. I can play in farmland all day long, but these type of things too allow people that aren't typically, I want to play in a wheat field, the opportunity to play in a different type of world.
Yeah, well, like you said earlier, the theme, that not only is that fantasy, but it's library. So it's something that people can relate to. You're organizing books in front of you in alphabetical order. It sort of makes sense, and it exposes people to a worker placement concept, which maybe, hopefully when you marry theme and some of those Euro mechanics, we'll get more and more people over into that sort of enthusiast game area.
Well, and that's the challenge, I think, today, too, is finding something that's not trains, not space.
It is hard.
Not zombies.
Not dwarves.
Not European agriculture.
Yeah.
You could still have that same gameplay. Give it a new theme. Give it something bright and color, like Grim Forest, or like you said, Ex Libris. Even you can even have a train game, but make it look more appealing, like Whistle Stop. That's an appealing looking
Russian
game.
railroads.
Russian
those type of
railroads,
games,
because
right.
you were competing against 1,500 games a year.
Right.
You know, your game might be awesome, but if it has a zombie on it, I am more likely, just my subjective opinion, I'm just going to walk past it, look for the next game.
Well, I don't think you're alone in that
Because-
either. I think a
right.
lot of people feel that way.
Well,
So, be fresh, be something new, not be the same tired theme.
What if it's European agriculture with zombies?
on trains?
Right.
I might be in
Okay.
on that
See, there's a double-edged sword there though, because like themes like that are marketable, something like zombies that we see a lot, or space that we see a lot, everyone understands that.
There's this familiarity.
There's
with
a
it.
familiarity.
sure.
You go into a zombie game,
My son
stay away
likes
from-
The Walking Dead.
Well, we
He's
know
gonna
zombies.
do
You know
this,
zombies
right.
are bad.
Yeah.
You're probably gonna have to survive.
Right.
Like you know things about the game just from the theme. But at the same time, you're right. When there's 100 zombie games that came out this year, people are gonna remember the best one. And if yours isn't the best
What
one,
makes it stand out? You're going to have to make it stand out.
then it's probably gonna be forgotten.
It's just like any other medium, right? When there's a hot movie with a certain theme, then you start seeing movies and TV shows with that theme as well. And the same thing happens in board games. It's when someone turns those things on their ear a little bit,
Right.
where a zombie game where you're playing the zombies and you're not just surviving the zombies, or marrying up, even as though we were joking a second ago, marrying it up so it's a totally weird game mechanic, but with zombies, can be a cool thing too.
Like a game I was going to think about, like Great Western Trail. That's just a Euro rondel. It could have been any theme, but he made it Western, and that's a fantastic game. But there's something, I know a lot of people have complaints about the cover because it does look kind of those cowboys. But when you look actually at the board and the cards, it's just, wow, that's something new and fresh.
Yeah.
And it's a fun game. I want to try that, and they start to try it like, hey, this is a lot of fun. And it's just something different than going around and farming.
It is cool to see that, like you said, the Americana type stuff leaking into the Euro scene like
What
that
sells?
one. That's a perfect example.
Yeah.
And it looks really good. Again, the game itself looks really, really good.
You brought up a game not too long, a Field of Green.
Yeah.
Fields of Green, which is Among the Stars.
It's basically a reprint of Among the
That,
Stars. Yeah.
but it's got that Americana type farming. Yeah, it's went to farming, but it's got that Americana type look to it. And it's fun and it's appealing, and it's another great game.
Yeah.
See, I love this trend of more theme in games. I remember, some of my favorite games like Dominant Species, like Castles of Burgundy. I mean, they have themes, but they're just very basic, and they don't really, like, there's not a lot of artwork to support that theme, or there's not a lot of elements of that theme present. So I don't mind these games that are huge, like hugely illustrated and have, produced artwork and things like that. Like, some people really complain like too many minis, or maybe even not enough minis. I don't know. It depends on where you are on that. But anything that makes the game feel more immersive, I tend to be for that.
I agree. I think when people make this is overproduced, that might be an accurate statement, but there's nothing wrong with that, because it shouldn't turn you off to a game if it's overproduced.
And the price goes up way too high.
Well, that's true. But it might turn other people onto the game. Like some of these games with these really nice miniatures, it sucks some people in that might not otherwise get into it. So that's a good thing.
What's your guys' opinion, as I'm looking at our wall again, I'm looking at Paper Tales, which doesn't really have a theme, but I'm also looking at Fallout right above it, which is an IP-based game. Like the video game industry, you usually have kind of a scared awareness towards things that may carry an IP.
Yeah.
Is that starting to also affect you with at least your initial looks at games that may have a particular IP with it that's popular?
I'll start. My cynical perspective is generally, my knee-jerk is to be leery of it. However, probably just within the last year, there have been more and more games that have come out that have surprised me, that were based on IPs. I think Bloodborne, when we played that, I was surprised at how good of a game that was based on that property. And Fallout even. I think that one really spoke to me. It spoke to us because if you're familiar with Fallout, it's a decent adventure sort of storytelling narrative game, kind of sandboxy as it is. But if you know Fallout, it's so good. Because it's not just good because of the story and you're familiar with that, but the way they've integrated the special and all the different game mechanics into how that works is super smart, or it seems it. Like I spent my whole time playing that the first time we played it, just going, "Oh, that's cool. I see how they connected it. That's very neat." Yeah.
Well, here's
go ahead.
when it comes to IPs. I mean, do you think it's that important when you're looking at two games that have the same theme, and one is an IP and one isn't? Like, for example, two zombie games that come out at the same time, and one is just here's some zombies, and the other is Walking Dead, whatever. Do you think, is that a big enough?
I don't think it's as important to us that are enthusiast gamers. I think that your casual gamers, your mom, your dad, your significant others that go into a store, they're going to see that on the shelf and be like, I know my son loves Star Wars. I'm going to buy him a Star Wars game, whether or not the game is good or not.
Right.
So.
I think here's a great example, and we just mentioned this game recently. There's going to be a set of people who go into a store and see The Thing sitting potentially next to who goes there. And there's going to be a set of people who grab The Thing every single time.
Because they recognize the name.
Because they recognize the name. I'm going to be one who's going to look a little deeper, and who goes there just has a much more appealing presentation to me. Like the artwork just completely sings to me. So I would probably take that, particularly combined with my cynicism about IP stuff. And I actually think, funny enough, they probably would have wanted to call it The Thing. But in a weird way, for me, it actually kind of benefited their product because they had to kind of use the source material instead of the actual IP.
Yeah. Let's shift gears here. Let's talk about if you were to pick like one or two themes that you'd like to see more of in the industry, what would they be? I'll start.
Yeah.
World War II.
Really? That's surprising.
Well, I mean, so there's so many grid-based World War II games that are very tactical, dice-driven games. And those exist. I mean, those are everywhere.
You want some Euros.
I want some Euro worker placement, area control style games that use that, and not like the Memoir where you're rolling dice and
Not a
roll
war
and
game
resolve.
necessarily.
Not a war game, so to speak, but have that same theme. And also the same thing with Westerns. I love Westerns. I'm glad to see Western Legends, which we just covered, which is on Kickstarter now, and then Great Western Trail. I thought that was a perfect theme for that game.
I know I'm right on board with you with the World War II. I'd even go with World War I.
Yeah,
there
absolutely.
there are American battles. There's lots of games out there on famous European battles and even more ancient ones. There's a lot of interesting battles, here in this area. But yeah, not the war game with the little cards and all that sort of stuff. Like a Euro based.
Yeah,
definitely Westerns. And I know I love pirate theme. And I know there's pirate themes out there, but they're usually more lighter.
Yeah, that's true.
Jamaica. The doubloon. What was it?
Dead Man's
Doubloon.
Have you
Black
played
Fleet.
Merchants and Marauders?
I haven't played Merchants and Marauders.
Okay.
I know that's more of a heavier one, but I would like to see more heavier type or
Pirate
more
theme?
medium type pirate-esque.
Yeah.
I've never played. Is Merchants and Marauders good? I've heard mixed things about that.
It's really good with the expansion. I wasn't a huge fan of the base game.
Yeah, it sounds like the kind of pirate game you might be looking for,
Yep,
right?
I think
Like
you'd
something,
like it.
something like Western Legends experience or the Fallout experience,
Right.
but pirates.
Yeah.
That would be cool.
Yeah.
See, and I think that's my thing. When I'm thinking about theme, when you talk about war games, people have that there's that connotation like, oh, it's a war. It's a game about war. We're fighting each other. We're bringing armies into battle. Like any kind of war, World War II, the American Revolution, the Civil War. They're all these like the Conquest series. They're all war games.
They're all direct conflict, too. Yeah.
Where's the game where you're just like,
Collecting resources.
and building
Building
a
supply
camp,
lines,
right?
yeah.
Right,
Yeah,
putting
yeah.
supply lines out like a route
Yeah,
game. Like
you can use Euro mechanics to still have the competitive thing too.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, and I'm going to bring this up in a minute for another reason, but like a game like Ethnos, that could be re-themed for all sorts of things. I mean, you could have all sorts of different elements of the World War II
planes
scene,
and tanks and
it's all
subs.
driving a very simplified area control game.
Yeah.
Right.
But you could have all sorts of different things and attach it to a World War II theme. if you
Pirates
wanted to.
is the same way. You get a pirate game, you're like, we're having a ship, we're getting treasure. Like, where's the tableau builder where I'm just like trying to build the best crew and at the end of the game score points? Like
Seems
point
like a
salad.
lot of those games gravitate towards the Viking theme.
Yeah,
The
there's a
Vikings
lot
are
of
prevalent
Viking
everywhere,
stuff.
but not
Yeah,
so many
definitely.
pirate stuff.
But I also love themes, like just what we were just talking about, themes that also, not just throw the theme on there, but themes that teach. I love games that teach.
Right.
I love, we've talked about the Black
Transatlantic?
Orchestra. Transatlantic. I mean, it does.
Historical type
Historical type teaching. Or not even that. I mean,
What
there's
about
other
like
ways
your
of
like
teaching.
cytosis and viral? And
Yeah,
those
yeah,
that are
yeah.
about
Exactly, because
anatomy,
I'm in the
you know?
healthcare field,
Yeah.
and those are two great games that do it right. They actually teach.
And are fun.
And are
because,
fun.
you know,
Yeah,
over the
right.
years, both in video games and all over the place, you'd see like, hey, we've got this game that teaches this. Oh, so it's a horrible game?
Right.
And that's not the case
I
with
grew
a
up
lot
on
of these
Math
newer
Blaster,
ones.
so
Exactly.
Right,
Like Math
right.
Blaster. No kid wants to play Math Blaster. Sorry, Math Blaster.
You have any themes?
Themes that I like to see, I spent more time thinking about how I'd retheme games.
Go ahead and start. What would you retheme?
So one of the things we talked about was how we might retheme a game. And I thought about this. There's a couple easy ones. One, I just mentioned Ethnos. And I don't have a theme for it. But when I see Ethnos, I see a game that could be rethemed easily.
Infinitely.
Like reskinned in all sorts of different ways. And the theme they have on it is pretty typical, right? We love the game, but the theme itself...
very generic fantasy.
It's generic fantasy.
Right.
It could be all sorts of stuff, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm going to say it could be like Marvel characters. It could be different Marvel teams, you know, the different teams within a comic book universe.
Yeah.
Which brings me to my next retheming, and that's, we've talked about this before, Fantasy Realms.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Fantasy Realms is the perfect game. They should just start putting out, like Love Letter, they should start putting out new versions of Fantasy Realms
Oh
that
yeah,
have
it could be
different
like a
themes.
Batman.
It would be fantastic.
Batman Fantasy Realms. That would be so cool.
You could largely use a lot of the same mechanics that are already built into the game, but just figure out how to retheme it so some of the cards really make sense. I don't even know that I'd call that a theme. Like it's kind of it's
fantasy.
It's
Yeah.
fantasy,
Another
but like
generic
some of the
fantasy.
cards are flood cards. It's a
Yeah, to get
It's-
different suits
it's
in.
more a mechanical game that it's enjoyed for that reason, not really because of the theme.
Yeah.
Right.
Those are a couple ones. I have a bigger one. but
Couple
I'll let
I
someone else
have.
go.
Couple easy ones. Like I was actually thinking Fantasy Realms, like in the Marvel. But I just talked about pirate theme. This would be kind of easy to do, but Voyages of Marco Polo. You could totally turn that to like Pirates of the Caribbean.
Oh, yeah.
Your board could be all the Caribbean islands. Your special power guys are Blackbeard, Barbossa, Calico Jack. All
really
these
good idea.
famous pirates.
That's a really good idea.
You could even throw in events like Fight a Kraken or Find Davy Jones' Locker.
Yeah.
You could do all this really cool stuff, and that'd be a super cool way to incorporate just a different kind of more of a.
Also have the dice. Could be like
it's
throwing
still the
bones.
dice.
You
It's
could be
still
throwing bones and-
oh yeah, doing bones.
It
and
lends
stuff. That'd be
itself
neat.
too to if they wanted to evolve it to have a little bit more conflict between players.
Right, exactly.
That theme that would make more sense. right?
Exactly. Yeah. And another one I thought of because I just love this game. You've played it with me. Is Goa.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
got a really weird theme and all that sort of
That's like
stuff.
old school Euro.
It's old school Euro, but
Yeah.
it's got this amazing fun auction mechanic. And I was thinking, like, how would I retheme it into something more fun and palatable?
Any idea?
Yeah, one I kind of think of was like food truck. And in Goa, you got to send your ships, and you have like a little tech tree. You got to send your ships to get spices. You go back up. You start colonies. You could do food trucks.
So you send them to Whole Foods?
You're getting ingredients for your food truck. You got to get money to upgrade your trucks. You got to get more trucks. And instead of going to colonies, you're going to Origins and the Gen Con and the Essen conventions.
Oh, wow.
Because in Goa, your colonies get bigger and better as they go. So you're going from the small ones are easier to get to than you get to the bigger ones. But something to make it more fun, but still use all the same mechanics. Because that is it's a top 100 game.
You know
it's
what?
just a super fun
You have
game.
to worry about city permits as well and all that kind of stuff.
You might. You could totally do that. So that's my Goa retheme. I thought long and hard on that one.
Yeah, you did. I'm sure there's a designer out there who write down notes.
I want some royalty.
I'll go next.
Oh, go ahead.
I'm gonna talk about Mombasa.
Yeah.
I don't think any of you guys have played
Nope,
Mombasa, have
it's
you?
on the list
No.
though.
Mombasa is a game about acquiring shares in South Africa. It's got a very heavy colonialism. It was a very dark time in South American history, 15th through 20th century, dealt with slavery. Although the game doesn't deal with any of that stuff, you're still trying to control different areas of Cape Town and Mombasa itself, St. Louis and Cairo, and these particular areas. And I thought it'd be really cool if they used that same gameplay but did World War II. Where the area control in the center is the different countries, the shares could be the industrialization for each of those different types of areas. It's got a really cool action selection with your hands and how you get cards back. Again, that could tie in with the resources that you're getting and using. But I just felt like that game could perfectly represent the type of game I'm looking for that has a World War II theme, but also has very heavy Euro mechanics.
Right.
That's cool.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've had that thought for a while.
Yeah, I don't know why.
Like, I
but-
think I could see you potentially making that happen at some
Well,
point.
it's kind of surprising that, there's a lot of worker placement games that out there that have dealt with kind of similar, historical events. No one's really made a World War II one.
Yeah.
That's not war game,
Right.
Whether it's rondel or worker placement or, like you said, resource management. There's a lot of that kind of history especially in the European theater about all that
I think
sort of
Manhattan
stuff.
Project is one of the closest ones.
But that's more nuclear age.
Yeah.
That's like in the 50s,
Yeah.
which is still a great game.
Yeah.
But
So Ryan, what do you have?
So I was thinking a lot about this, and like,
Space.
well, I do.
Zombies.
No. So I would have, I would have said like I always loved space games growing up, but now we do have so many space games that I would actually maybe retheme some of these outside of space. But that's not what I wanted to talk about. What I wanted to talk about is something that you already
setup.
brought it up,
Nice segue.
and that's Fallout. And I don't think Fallout has a bad. I love the theme. I think it's great. I love that game. What I love about Fallout is the system of the way you move around the board, the way you uncover those cards, and you're kind of building your own choose your own adventure story as you go. I would love to see that core system themed to Star Wars or Lord of the Rings or even just like a fantasy quest where, like, was it Legend of Dragonholt? Mm-hmm. Something like that, but using that same card mechanic from Fallout, that same style of game with the modular board, because it really does feel like you're telling a story, yet it's not as
You really like the
complicated.
game that much that you would want that same gameplay in a
I
Star
like
Wars
that.
game?
I like that card-driven quest system that they have there.
So just the card system.
But
I think
there's parts about the game that aren't that I don't love as much, like the way combat works and things like
The
that.
narrative aspect of that game was really cool, though, and well done. The branching missions where something might happen and then another card gets shuffled into the deck.
search deck, yeah,
Is
I
really-
would
I don't.
like to
I've
see it
never
again.
played another game like
Right.
that. But
I
I
want to
think
see
that's
that. I
really
want them to
cool.
take that and do more games that aren't just Fallout.
Would it be in space?
Might be. I mean, Star Wars.
Fallout in
But that would, I mean,
space.
imagine a Star Wars game like that, where you're moving from planet to planet,
In space.
searching the planet, uncovering
That's
like
the
old
trick
plots
here.
and things
Everything
like that.
we're such Star Wars fans that
That's true.
anything
Everything
could
would
be
be better in
rethemed Star Wars.
Okay, so
Let's take
not-
Star Wars out of the equation for a minute.
Not yet. Not yet. My big retheme idea, and this kind of like this. It's not a game that I think needs to be rethemed at all because I love this game. But when I was thinking about this, I thought the bounty hunter sort of world and universe of Star Wars
Highly unexplored.
it's extraordinarily, and it's one that every fanboy like us has always wanted to be explored. There was talk about a TV show that was going to focus
And a
on
video
that.
game that never
and a
happened.
video game. So I was thinking about that theme and that concept, and then I thought something like a Near and Far,
Oh.
but with that, I started imagining that place, the hub that you go back to as like Mos Eisley or something like
Yeah.
that. And then basically just this narrative thing that unfolds where you're largely motivated to go out there, capture bounties. It weaves in a little bit of canon here and there to kind of keep the thing going. That would be like if
You're dabbling in the good side. You're dabbling in the
yeah,
dark
if,
side.
If that game came out, man, we would
that'd be
be
pretty
all
cool.
over it.
That's interesting.
That,
yeah.
that is an interesting
Yeah, and I think
take.
they kind of like sparked something. I think with the Imperial Assault and the Imperial Assault app, because I love the narrative of this, but yet Imperial Assault can feel kind of samey over time, and it'd be great to see a more narrative driven games in that Star
Well,
Wars
like you were
universe,
saying
for
with
sure.
the Fallout cards and with the way the book works in Near and Far, we had such a blast reading those things, and it was about a world that we had no knowledge of. Imagine if we were reading that stuff, and the person reading is like, "Oh my gosh, Boba Fett!" Like you just found Boba. Stuff's happening
Yeah.
that we're familiar with is super cool.
Well, that's we're seeing a lot more of this. You got Near and Far, even Above and Below.
Yeah.
Even Gloomhaven does it to an extent. Legacy of Dragonholt does it. Stuffed Fables, which is coming out. Just another IP. That I think maybe they just don't do it. They just don't really
Seventh
try to.
Continent. You're getting to the narrative idea, right? Yeah.
is Zelda.
Oh.
Near and Far. Mario
yeah.
Near and Far. Whatever it is. It's something different than, because I love Star Wars. I love Lord of the Rings. But I also would like to see something
I
different.
100% agree. I think it's really hard for publishers to be able to get that much of a they already own the license, but to get story from all these such iconic type things.
Yeah.
Like
'Cause they have such a grip on it.
they have such a grip on it, and they're probably fighting through all kinds of different licensing deals to be able to do that. Even like Imperial Assault, we've only played one mission so far.
Tutorial in the mission.
One tutorial in the mission, and we don't like the future of that. I don't know how much like of that stuff's going to be canon. I don't know how much Lucas has to contribute to say you can write Boba Fett into the story, but it's not canon, or it is canon.
Yeah.
Like there's such a
It's a tricky world to
Yeah.
play in. Like, and in most cases, and that's why I'm cynical about them so often, is that in most cases, the end result suffers because of all that stuff that they have to go through. You know, they might have the coolest idea that would get all four of us going, oh my God, that would be awesome. And then the powers that be on the licensing front go, oh no, you can't do that with that
I
character.
can't believe
Well,
there
and
hasn't
also
been a
you're
modern
so
Zelda
familiar
game.
with the game. You want the board game to be a certain way, and it might let you down just because.
Yeah. The tricky thing about some properties, though, like Zelda, when I think of Zelda personally, it's such an experience of solitude for me. You know, it's a single-player experience. That's a harder IP to imagine being a game that you play with people.
When I played Seventh Continent, that feels like Zelda to
It
me.
does.
I mean,
That
it's
could- that
basically
could have been a Zelda game.
right? Even Tiny Epic Quest is basically Zelda.
Yeah, that felt that way
Yeah.
for sure. That was the thing that came the closest. But I do think, and we're getting a little off of the theme
Yeah.
topic, but the whole concept of narrative games, obviously from some of our ideas, it's the narrative element of gaming is really
I think
hitting hard lately.
themes try to tell a narrative anyway.
Yeah.
And like that's the whole like Godfather's selling a narrative through the gameplay, but it would be. I'm
Well,
never
it
gonna
shows a
turn
challenge, I think, for designers out there, and you know, got to give all the ones credit that really come out with something new and fresh. Because it's easy just to go back to the farming or the trains or the space or the zombies.
Yeah.
You know, but to come out and do something fresh because you just can't get those IPs. It would be really cool to see a Harry Potter game with a tech tree where you're building your spells and go out and use those. But that's just a hard IP, I'm sure, to grab with such a grip.
Yeah.
So you have to create something new. Like, well, Isaac has created Gloomhaven, Isaac Childress. You know, he's got a whole new world now he can totally explore and do new games with.
Well, and that's what's interesting. You do see some companies creating their own universe.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, you can create a game, that's one thing, but then create a universe and then build games in that universe.
Yeah.
That's,
And that's
really
exactly
cool.
what Ryan Lockett's done with.
Yeah.
That's
I mean, that's the same
all of
universe
the games.
all of his
Well,
games
and
exist
James
in.
Hudson is doing that. Not to keep talking about Grim Forest,
Yeah.
but he's already talking about what's next for Grim Forest. What else is
Yeah.
going to happen in that universe?
I think that's too why you know, some of these things we see bridging between some of these board game companies and RPGs too. They like Renegades launching, is it Overlight? Is that the name of it?
Yeah.
Which is a big RPG system, but I think they have a lot of other ideas planned for that universe as well.
All right, let's finish this up with games we've played. I'll go first this
Yeah.
time. I've played a lot. I'm going to touch on just a couple of them. I know you'll probably touch on Kalimala, so I'll touch on ReWorld. The three of us played ReWorld.
Yeah, I didn't play.
It's a Kiesling Kramer game. It's very odd. It's a weird playing game. The first half of the game, you're basically going on a ship and you're drafting modules that in the second half of the game then get filtered down to a planet that you're trying to inhabit. It's weird. I mean, in that weird,
it's
we
weird.
all
It plays-
felt,
it
it's
plays
odd feeling.
backwards.
Yeah.
Because the second everything comes left to right, but you build
Well, you
build right to left, and then
everything
you
gets built
display them
right.
left to right. So you have to take the last things you're going to want
Yeah.
first. So you have to think back. It's super thinky.
It's not intuitive.
No,
at all
not at
when the
all.
first time you play, and I would imagine the more you play the game, the more you understand. I don't know. Did you guys find that game super satisfying when you played it?
It was. I gotta play it again. That's for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
It's not a typical Kramer Kiesling game. Even though it's got the cool scoring, which a lot of Kramer and Kieslings do.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it was just that first play trying to think backwards. So I'd have to do it again now, knowing kind of what's going into it. But I enjoyed it. But I definitely need to play it again.
It was satisfying for me, but then I also lucked into a couple really what proved to be really
Right.
strong moves at the end of the game that I didn't quite like know enough to set them up, but they just kind of fell into place.
Yeah.
Right.
That let me kind of like
It kind of worked to your advantage.
kind of
You're
work to
like,
my
"Oh,
advantage and really pull off some
glad
cool
I
combos.
did that. I didn't know what I was
Right,
doing.
Exactly.
Right.
I'll talk about one real briefly. Lorenzo expansion. It's so good. We've played it. I've played it multiple times. If you guys like Lorenzo at all, if you don't, buy it anyway. It's good.
That's cool. Well, I've been playing a few things. Well, we played Raiders of the North Sea, which you talked about, I think, last time, and I hadn't played it. and it is good. Have you played it?
I have not.
You play with all the expansions? And
It is
everything?
good. We played with the 2
Hall of
remaining
Heroes and Fields of Fame.
super good game. I have to say, like I feel when I play with Jeremy a lot, especially if he's had experience with the game, I felt like I was getting destroyed, like at first, because he was just going. He knew exactly what he wanted to do. He was doing his little card thing that he does, and I'm like, I'm just stymied here. I was taking turns that felt like I wasn't accomplishing anything, and he was probably feeling sorry for me a little bit. But at a certain point, I said, "There's no way I'm going to be able to catch up." He did.
I didn't play any bad cards.
He didn't play any
until the very
competitive
end.
cards. But as badly as I thought I did, then I started doing some things in my game that he just wasn't doing. There's a lot of options for scoring points in that thing. And I was going some routes that he wasn't. And in the end of the game, we scored high 140s, but a 2-point difference.
Yeah.
And anytime there's a game,
Close in our game,
Yeah,
too.
it was really close.
2-point difference and you're scoring in the 140s,
Yeah.
that's tight.
Yeah.
Like 2-point difference, 20 to 22 is one thing. 148 to 146 is different. That is a really good experience, and the artwork is fantastic.
Yeah.
I'm sold on that game now. I definitely want a copy.
Now
of
are you excited for
With
Architects
those
of the
two
West now that
expansions.
you've played Raiders?
Perhaps. I'll want to play it. I am a sucker for that art a lot. I love that person's art a lot. Another game I played, I mentioned this earlier, I played Pulsar last night.
Yeah.
And I want to bring this up for one reason and one reason only.
You played it wrong?
Yes, that's actually what I wanted to bring up.
Except it's funny because we played it together, we played it right.
We've all, I don't know that we played everything right that night either. But I wanted to ask you guys, how do you feel when you've played a game and then you realize that you've played it wrong? We even got one in Raiders today. There was one little space that we corrected ourselves on. And do you ever feel like, oh, I've played this 5 times and now that it seems like a giant lie? Like I didn't, like
I can't do that anymore.
should I have won if I won in those games?
Well, I can definitely tell the way you played it, your new experience, knowing that's going to be a better experience.
with
playing
Pulsar?
in Pulsar.
Well, Pulsar, the biggest thing we got wrong was that we were using one die at a time and going around the table because it seems like such a intuitive thing to do.
Yeah, like
Right.
Most
place
games
one.
like that, you use one do and then you go around the table. But you use all of your die, and it also clears up a rule on the bonus die. It makes that make a lot more sense.
It also makes your question about the bonus die make more sense.
Makes turn order mean
Right.
a lot more in that
Yeah.
game, too.
Oh, absolutely. But anyway, the game's still phenomenal, and it was also still very, very tight game. Pulsar, that's another game where you score points all over the place. And amazingly, there's one aspect of the game, where you buy those satellite stations?
Yeah, the transmitters.
Transmitters.
3-player game, 0 of those built the entire game.
Really?
Yeah, we just, I talked to Jeremy about this
That
today.
is
That is very
unusual.
unusual.
That game is so, in a good way, suffocating because you just feel like, should I be doing that? I can't do it. I only have 2 dice that I'm spending on my turn. It's hard to pull yourself away from some other thing you're trying to do to try to do something
I've said
else.
that about many a game. I love games that give you a lot of options, and by the end of it, you are barely able to complete anything that you want to do. And to me, that's satisfying because it makes every single decision that you make in the game extremely important. Instead of having a tableau that has everything you wanted to do, you may have a third of that or a quarter of that.
But there's a lot of pressure. Like it feels like you used the word suffocating today. It feels like you've got your hands tied behind
It's
your head.
overwhelming.
Yeah.
I played it with a buddy. I taught a friend of ours, and he was watching what I was doing, and I was kind of dipping over here and dipping over there. And he just kept stopping, and he's like, you know what? I need to stop watching you and just focus on what I'm doing because I'm going to start chasing what you're doing. He's like, I'm not going to have anything by the end of the game.
And that's why I feel the way I do about those sometimes is because I am like a dog and a squirrel. Because every time I see someone doing something, I'm like, wait a minute, what did you do over there to get 12 points? I've not done that at all. I'm going to try that. And then by the end of the game, I've tried everything just enough to lose. I've done it all, but I've done it all poorly.
It's not a difficult game to play. It's just
No.
there's just a lot of stuff. But
Tons.
there's lots of good stuff.
Yeah.
There's really not a path you can go that's bad. I'm just gonna go down this path. I'm gonna do a little bit of this, and I won the game. And it's tight too. How many did you play with?
We played 3 players, and we didn't even play with the
advanced board.
advanced boards, which would even put more options in front of you.
yeah.
What I've been playing, couple games real quick first before I get to the main one. I taught Fantasy Realms to some friends one night, and I thought it was late. I taught them Cold Water Crown, so we played Cold Water Crown, and then we play. I'm like, hey, let me show you this game. I knew we'd probably take it it takes that first time to see cards. We played it, like, oh, okay, that's fun. Well, let's play it again. Now I get it. 8 games later, I'm like,
Really?
okay, guys, I got to go home.
Are you exaggerating?
They couldn't stop. Like, play that again. They were sucked in. In fact, I
such a
keep getting
good
texts
game.
when we play in Fantasy Realms again. I hope
It's like
Yeah.
Rare Words. It's such a quick game that you can just
and it's
pick it up and play
plays
again.
different every single time.
It really does. I thought that the first few times we played it, but then we played it again very recently during one of our game nights, and I was shocked at how different my
it's
game
so
was.
good. It's so smart.
Yeah.
So we did that. I taught Cold Water Crown. They love that. We also played some Downforce. But then I finally got my Kalimala. So we all played that a couple weeks ago, I think. I enjoyed it. I definitely want to play it again. It's a lot faster than I thought.
Super fast.
It plays fast. We played 4 players, so it plays fast. I definitely want to play it again. I don't think it's as great as I wanted it to be, but it's definitely good enough that I'm going to keep it around because I want to play it a couple more times.
It's different.
Because there's obviously a lot of strategy there that I still want to kind of tap into first.
Yeah, I do feel like this is kind of maybe a backhanded compliment. It feels like a game that's going to take another player to appreciate some of what it has to offer. But at face value, the experience felt like a very traditional, pretty straightforward Euro, right? Where you're just trying to get some majorities here and here and here, and those will score differently.
Right.
The grid, the way that worked, I thought was pretty interesting.
That's a really neat mechanic.
I haven't seen that in many things. It reminded me of Spirium, that game where you're between cards and activating both.
Well,
very
plus,
unique game.
it's kind of a little bit of a slow grind at first because nobody's getting out into the scoring track. But boy, once you get to about halfway point,
Well, the
they're just
last
going to
the
scoring
last couple
track.
rounds points are getting scored everywhere.
Yeah, you
It's
really got to
crazy amount
start
of points
seeing
in the
ahead
end.
and thinking ahead. Like, okay, I got to start working on this, or I'm going to get left behind.
Also, want you to tell our audience that you have a new game that slipped into your top 10. My number 4,
Oh, the
Santa Maria.
Santa Maria. Yeah, that's right. Oh, we haven't talked about it. That game is awesome.
I need to play that game.
Wow. I bought it immediately. There was a game store here in town. They had like 3 copies. You got one.
Yep.
I got one. And our friend got the other one. But I have definitely my top 10 of 2017 has changed.
Really?
Santa Maria is definitely in that. In fact, I would say even Pulsar 2849 is right underneath there.
Yeah.
Because it is so replayable. Boy, Santa
I need to
Maria,
play it.
what a fun game.
It's a great game.
You need to break it out.
It's a
You need to
great
teach
game. I
me
can't
that
wait
one.
to play it more.
I haven't played it yet.
Oh, yeah, we got to play it for sure.
And my guess
I
is
want
it
to.
plays great at 2. I'm guessing it plays just as well at 3 and 4.
We said this initially. Our first playthrough took a while because we were just trying to understand the mechanics. But now my wife and I can play in 40 minutes, easily.
Wow.
Quick game once you learn it.
Great game.
I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about what I've played because I've had basically 2 go-to games in the last month that I just keep going back to, and that's Azul and Pulsar. And you've heard us talk a lot about Azul. You've heard us talk a lot about Pulsar. But really, those I play a lot with my wife and our group of friends, and it's like, let's play more Azul. Let's play more. Like everybody that I know that's played it once, it's just they come over. Like I get texts, hey, can we come over and play Azul? Like, when can we play Azul again? Like your Fantasy Realms, like that's what's been happening. But I've also recently gotten into Time Stories, which I know there are some mixed opinions of Time Stories in this group here. But the more I play it, the more I really enjoy it and start to see the puzzle aspects. Like, they really come to the forefront of, like, how to put the puzzle. And maybe just because they're also getting better. Like,
What
the
if there's
adventures
any
are getting
correlation between you
better as they
liking
go.
that and liking The Last Jedi?
I knew an insult was coming.
We're not talking about The Last Jedi. That would be a whole show.
Let us know if you want to hear us talk about The Last Jedi.
It'd be
We
like-
might
I'm
Not
do
sure if
that.
you want to or
Like a
not.
2-hour
There may be
special.
blood spill.
No, I just, Time Stories, each case that's come out has been, I think, a little more inventive and a little harder and a little more puzzly than the ones that came before it.
I'd like to try that. I kind of regret having sold my copy to
To
you
me.
a while ago, about
Yeah, it
probably
was like-
a year and a half ago or something.
Yeah, like right after it came out, basically.
So Azul is the thing you've been playing the most, though?
I mean, we still play it. We just still
interesting. It's
keep
ironic
playing
that
it.
on this episode about theme, we're finishing with you
Abstract.
talking
Total
about
abstract.
Azul.
And Tile Lane.
Although I think there is a theme there, but
There is
boy,
a theme
there
there,
really
but
isn't.
it's not a very common one. You're not going to see a lot of tile mosaic building games coming out like as a theme.
Maybe
in the
the
future.
only one.
Yeah,
Ever.
the
Yeah.
one and only.
Well, that is episode 10 in the can. If you have any thoughts about themes, games that you think need to be rethemed, any of the things we talked about, share them in the comments below. Follow us on Facebook, Mombasa. If you don't like World War II games, please let Jeremy know. But like I said, follow us on Facebook and Twitter and all of that. And thanks for watching.